Okay, I'm just gonna try like manual in many cases. Hopefully you guys are bearing with me, as I said, with all this stuff. Thank you guys very much again for the support. I was looking at the funds for it, and that's basically at 45% of the camera if I was to buy like a brand new one, like with the exact same one. I don't know how much more I can really like say thank you to that, because to me it actually means a lot. So I guess another analogy for kind of explaining it would be kind of like, think of it in life, like you probably always pass by some guy playing a music or something like that in the street. You walk by it every day, even though people may enjoy it and so forth. Like for the most part, I would imagine, you know, it's not their problem in life or whatever they have, so like just keep walking. Where sometimes people throw like, you know, here's a quarter and so forth. But in this case, like you guys are donating like that money with the amount. Like that's, imagine like with someone else, you threw them like $10, $20, like you know how they would react, how happy they would be to realize there's people that care in that way. As well, I like the touch with the messages. It almost makes me feel like when you leave the messages, when you donate, it almost makes me feel like I'm in the hospital. You guys are coming to visit because you care, wishing me to get well and all that. So that's a nice touch personally. It kind of makes me smile when I wake up, and to, again, even though this is a hassle right now, you know, I'll get through it. One update with the drone that I brought in, I just got a phone call just a few minutes ago about it. And apparently from their test, they said they're suggesting that I replace the entire right arm. Because to my understanding from when they tested it, they tried to start every motor individually, kind of works. Then afterwards for the right one specifically, the one that initially had the problem, when they started it and wiggled it a bit, they said, then all of a sudden it shut off. He was saying there's probably something wrong with the wires actually inside the actual arm that's covered so that they can't actually see. So instead they're suggesting just to replace that entire arm in general. Does that make sense to people, I guess, who are more experts in building stuff like this, or like just with soldering and stuff in general? But one of my concerns was just based on what happened with like the left arm basically, or the left propeller just snapping off twice in a row. Is it just that, or is there something wrong with like the board, for example? For that, I guess the little scary thing is he couldn't really confirm definitely like whether or not it is like just that right arm. He said the best he can do is just test the left arm with the same thing. He'll like wiggle it and all that. Because obviously my concern is if there's something bigger that's wrong with that thing, then even though you get this fixed, and next time it falls, who knows? That drone's gonna snap in half, right? Then, well, that's it. Because one of the things that was kind of concerning, I was talking to a different person, I think it's just the customer service. Like I said, like, well, is that the only problem? And he goes, well, that's not what you came in for originally. Like originally it's just for the right arm. But I said like, well, realistically I came in because I didn't know what was wrong, period, like the ESC, because I don't have like the resources and tools or the specific knowledge to test exactly what is wrong. So as of now, I just said, yeah, let's replace the right arm then if you're positive, like that's what's wrong with it. Okay, and for some stuff I read today, a lot of tech stuff I guess you can say, but the first one that caught my attention was actually drone related. It says here, NASA to test urban drone traffic management in Texas and Nevada. Drones are piloted by a range of users, including amateur enthusiasts, pizza delivery companies, and the military. Technologies set to be demonstrated include automated safe landing and vehicle-to-vehicle communication. The agency said Tuesday that the Lone Star UAS Center for Excellence in Innovation in Corpus Christi, Texas, and the Nevada Institute for Autonomous Systems in Las Vegas will host demonstrations in order to confirm that NASA's UAS traffic management system could, quote, safely and effectively manage drone traffic in the urban area. And they referenced the Gatwick incident. It says, on Wednesday, the UK government laid out plans for an extended no-fly zone to ban drones and model aircraft from flying within 5 kilometers of runway ends. NASA said its demonstrations will allow itself and partners such as the Federal Aviation Administration to help the commercial drone industry understand the challenges posed by flying in an urban environment. It added that results from the demonstration would help to inform future rules, policies, and traffic management procedures for the operating drones safely over populated areas. So that's great. I mean, it's just a matter of time before the skies, or whatever I guess you could say, should just become like a regular road or sidewalk in terms of how people manage it and all that, like share the airspace. And I was reading a lot of tech and gear stuff today. I guess the first one that's all over the place is that new Samsung phone that was announced, the S10 and all that, huh? Says here things like the S10 Plus is going to cost about $1,000, but the one I was most interested in learning is that foldable one, just to see what it's like since it's been talked about so long, so they finally unveiled something about it. This one says, Galaxy Fold is here with 6 cameras and 2 batteries. So kind of expected, it's basically a phone that folds out and in. It looks really big too, like bigger than some tablets that I've seen. says here like what, it has a 7.3-inch infinity flex display, 4.6-inch cover display, triple rear camera, dual front camera, 12 gigabytes of RAM, and a 4,380 milliamp battery. And the funny thing with the show is, as expected, when people are watching it, they're like, ooh, ah. As soon as the guy announced the price, like starting or something like that, 1,980. Everyone's like, ugh. You hear like a pin drop in the room. For me, that's way too pricey anyways at that price range. It would be nice to have something like that, because even for me, when people are curious about the drones and stuff, I show them footage like on this little tiny one. It'd be nice to have like a bigger screen, but not at that price. And the last thing I was researching a lot about was the GoPro Hero Black 7, since a lot of you guys were saying why not consider that in terms of a replacement camera for the one I had versus the Sony FDR X3000. So I was researching it, looking at the videos and all that for reviews. I mean, from what a lot of people show, it looks pretty decent, you would say. I mean, it has the picture quality, the stabilization looks great. Just an example, like with the picture quality with the GoPro, it has like this weird fisheye type of lens look to it. Like, I personally don't really like that compared to like a more standard look. I mean, do people actually prefer fisheye look? And from what I read, you can get rid of that look, but in the GoPro, you'd have to shoot in 2.7K. Like, you can't shoot in 4K, for example, to my understanding. So that would be like a disadvantage in that way if I can't shoot in the 4K just with a regular looking picture. So that would be the first negative. And the other one that's kind of making me worried, again, it comes down to things like the digital stabilization in many ways. When it comes to shooting things like low light, like the one I had wasn't very good in low light either. I mean, that tiny little thing, how are you going to hold like a good sensor and all that? But with the GoPro specifically, even from what I've read, when you're shooting it in night mode, it's a whole different story for the stabilization. A lot of people, they have so many issues. It's like, it looks so wobbly, you'd be wondering like, hey, this is like a completely different camera. And that's partly due because it relies on things like the digital stabilization. So I guess you guys can kind of learn with it with me, kind of like how I view stuff when I'm debating about buying like equipment. That would be a disadvantage, like in terms of the low light. Again, the one I had wasn't very good in low light in general, but just from the sounds of it, I could still shoot in 4K with a high quality as much as possible, whereas that one, it seems like it just gets destroyed like in a low light mode. The other positive about the GoPro compared to the one I use, it has its own screen, so you can actually preview what you're looking at, whereas the one I had, you actually have to connect it externally to like say your smartphone or something like that, which is not what I do regularly. So basically when I'm filming my old one, you're filming blind. While that should be a disadvantage for me personally, it's not really, because it basically reduces the size of the actual camera, which is fantastic. And the angle of it is so wide that it covers virtually, you know, everything. Because the convenience for how I use it in my daily life is really important as well. Because you might notice, like even now, just because unfortunately I have to use like this setup, you probably don't see like the random sights and sounds, like the quirky stuff. And I thought it would be interesting to dive into that other point that some people were bringing up, just in terms of camera gear that might be way cheaper, for example. Just think about this in terms of things like gear. I'm just using the example that was written in the comment, like buying, for example, a small, cheap, older model GoPro with a stabilizer. You'll get like fantastic image that's just as good. I mean, you have to keep in mind too, I mean, for me walking, does anyone think it's a joke when I walk like 16 kilometers plus? Can you imagine me setting up a GoPro with a stabilizer? I have to hold this thing like for 16 kilometers of my travel a day, just in case to be ready. Like if I feel like it to record, then yeah, I'll bring this up. Or if I don't have it all set up, then I'll put it in the bag, and it comes down to, again, okay, I gotta bring this up, set it up. I'm not gonna do it because it's getting in the way of my life. Because one of the reasons why I don't go crazy, for example, I would say, like for a lot of people that try to make these videos and stuff like as much as I do, is because I try to revolve it around my life and try to make it as convenient as possible. So before, what I had, it's so tiny, it's so convenient, I just whip it out. I literally, I'm like, while I'm walking, I could just be recording non-stop, and then at the end of the day, I can like, oh, I remember this shot, I'll put that in there. Whereas like with this stuff, it's kind of like using a drone. Like you have to plan for it and be ready. Like for the stabilizer, I could use it for the thermal camera, which was an idea before, but it's not working, like from what I test. Like in those situations, again, it's stop, I'm ready to film. Like there, I can actually plan it, but not just for the regular shoots overall. Even with things like the microphone, like when I say things like, oh, well, this camera has like bad sound. I mean, you could say like, hey, go buy this microphone that's $10 or something like that, like a clip-on, but think of it again, like with the way I use it. Because in those situations, like as an example, anyone remember that video about the drone hater that I encountered? Can you imagine that? If the thing had bad audio, I don't have like the mic set up and so forth, I'm like, okay, hold on sir, let me just put all this on. Okay, we're ready, action. It doesn't work that way, like, just with the way like I use it. So it'd be interesting to hear thoughts about that too, because I'm just giving things from my side, because I know a lot of times people think it's really easy, like just from what you see, but I'm telling you, like when you watch like a 5-minute to 10-minute clip, it's not literally I walked there for like 5 to 10 minutes, it's the whole day, like in general. Just a general thought too, I mean, with you guys supporting me in this way, it kind of inspires me to want to find ways to, in a sense, step up my game in terms of things like quality and stuff too. Because I was thinking about it before, but just realizing, like, you know, again, with things like the investment and the time and all that, like gear and all that, but with you guys helping me in this situation, unfortunately, that's forcing me to get new stuff. I mean, that's something on my mind. Like, what is the best value in that way to enable me to, I guess you could say, step up my game and create even better stuff? Because sometimes you are just plain limited to what the equipment is capable of doing. Because with things like quality too, I guess that's a little subjective, but for me, for example, I would think I need like a certain level of quality in terms of things like whether it's video or sound, because I would imagine I'm set to like a different standard, if that makes sense. Because even when I watch things, I want to create things that I would enjoy seeing too. Like with the drone videos, like the other day you guys were saying you really enjoyed that video going through the trees with the sunlight. I mean, I'll just use an example. I mean, what happens if I had a camera like this? Would you still say like, oh yeah, like I still get the same emotion and stuff? I would say no, right? Or even with this camera, most of you, like, I know you did it like out of like a joke and stuff like that because you even know the situation with my gear, but you guys couldn't help to comment like, oh my god, like what is that? Like you look like a ghost, what kind of camera is that? So quality does play like a factor. Alright, so by the sounds of it, I probably will be able to pick up the drone tomorrow. I guess we'll see. I guess for today, it's the archive again, huh? Alright, see you guys later.